Hi, everyone. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes as people are still coming in. So just hold on tight. We'll wait one more minute here and then we'll get started.
I think we're great, and people can show up fashionably late if they would like. So,
All right. Thanks everyone for joining. We are really excited to be here with you all. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about modern AI strategies for online fundraising and wealth screening. I'm sure people are going to continue to come in. So please feel free to join us and let's get started. So today we're gonna have a little bit of an agenda here. First, we're gonna introduce you to our speakers, Will and I. And then today we're gonna go over some best practices. In particular, how can we improve that donation experience? And then how do we sync those donors to that CRM that you're using? Then we'll talk about wealth screening after those donations come in. And then ultimately, the end goal here is we want to find those major gift prospects for you, find those people who can really move the needle. And then finally, of course, we'll have Q&A. Feel free also to send in your questions during this. We'll answer them all at the end, but there should be a comment button there. So feel free to send in your questions throughout the presentation.
hey everyone, I am Will Pope. I am the Director of Technology Partnership at Fundraise Up, and I'm excited to talk about those first two pieces of the agenda here today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Yan. I'm Director of Business Development here at Windfall. I'm very excited to team up here with Will to chat about this.
And I'll tell you just a little bit about Fundraise Up. We are an online donation platform, and our one goal is to make donating online as easy, as simple as possible, and reduce as much friction as possible so that organizations that use Fundraise Up can receive as many donations as possible.
And Windfall, we are a data company here in San Francisco, and we provide a lot of wealth screening and wealth data that ultimately we're trying to help you find those donors that can really move the needle, those major gifts and such.
Well, I'll talk a little bit about these 4 points and how we came up with them to be able to optimize the way that you collect donations online. And the cool part about a cycle is that you could really start at any of these spots and end at any of them, and they'll it'll work out the process. But today we're going to start at the top right hand corner with donating online, and talk a little bit about what it means to optimize an online donation experience, and what are the challenges that come with that and how to overcome them, and then talk about what does it look like to sync all of that data into wherever you're storing all of, wherever your one source of truth is, whether that's your CRM or your SOR or whatever database you have, and syncing all of that data over easily, efficiently. And then we'll have Linda talk about wealth screening that data, and then very possibly finding a great major gift prospect. And who knows, maybe $100 donation online could eventually turn into a $50,000 donation after you've realized who that donor is. So let's talk about the first step: improve donation experience. So there's a couple of challenges that come up when we talk about online donations. So what are the challenges that you as an organization are up against when a donor is thinking about donating online? Well, first and probably most important is friction tolerance. So online donors, online consumers are used to doing things extremely easy online. They're used to using Apple Pay to buy something in one click. They're used to everything being built for mobile, and they're used to everything being extremely simple. So when our donation forms or the way that a donor checks out has a ton of friction in it, that is not something that donors like, and easily abandon that process. Secondly, we know that improving all of that costs costs a lot of money. So it seems like from our research, the organizations and the causes that do that best and reduce that friction, they receive more donations because that's the way online donations work. And finally, we recognize that when donors are online, they're seeing the organization that they're donating to the same as a e-commerce site that they're buying from. They're expecting the same experience. And we know that those for-profit e-commerce companies, they have tons and tons of cash to be able to invest in all of these great technologies that a nonprofit probably doesn't have. So if you can't beat them, why don't we join them? And so e-commerce platforms utilize so much modern technology to increase their conversion rate. And I want to tell you about a couple of those strategies that they use today that the nonprofit world can use so that you can increase your donation revenue as well. So let me show you a couple of e-commerce sites that I use all the time. So Amazon, everyone knows it. It's super easy. It's extremely addicting, and they have the one-click payments that makes it so easy to click. All my information is already saved, and I go through that process immediately. Next, we have Warby Parker. I think IPO'd yesterday, in fact. So they were on the top of my news feed. But they have an integrated upsell right in the checkout. So I'm buying glasses, and then it already asked me to buy a frame case and a lens cloth, and upgrade to the better shipping option, all right there in the checkout. And that's expected. Me as the consumer, I'm not dissuaded by that, because that's just how online commerce works. And finally, Uber Eats. Same with them. There's a service fee associated. I'm paying for my food, but then I'm also paying for Uber Eats. And all of these technology goes right in. I'm expecting it as the consumer, and then I can easily expect these same technologies when I'm donating online as well. But why hasn't the nonprofit industry used some of these technologies yet? So what we've seen is a lot of times I'll go on a nonprofit website. I tried to give to this org the other day. There are a million boxes to fill out. It's extremely overwhelming. There's a lot of required fields. So if I type in one letter slightly wrong, I got to go all the way back and repeat a bunch of fields. I only can give by my credit card or my checking account. There's no digital wallet options or anything like that. And it just, as soon as I look at this, I'm extremely overwhelmed, and I don't know how to move forward. As I've been reiterating more earlier on, donors online think of the online donation the same as they think of a checkout. of a e-commerce business. We've seen that 12.9% of giving for all nonprofits comes from online sources, and 14.3% of all purchases comes from online sources. So it's pretty similar numbers. And so it shows that consumer behavior and donor behavior exactly mirror each other. So we as nonprofits have to keep up with that same technology. What would it look like if we did this? If we as nonprofits used e-commerce principles in the way our donation experiences happened? Well, there'd be first a modal that would pop up when someone clicks a donate button. So instead of taking people to a different page or a different landing site, we have a modal that will pop up right on their website. We've seen so many different e-commerce stores do this, and it makes it so that it reduces all redirects. And we have AI suggested amounts. So we want to make sure that the donor doesn't have to be overwhelmed thinking through so many different fields. And one of those is amount. So we'll have an AI that takes a bunch of different data points from IP geolocation, device, how many times they've come to your website before, and then use all of that data to compile and suggest amounts that it knows that that donor is supposed to give. And 50% of people will choose one of those amounts. Next, payment options or upsell tools. Next, upsell tools. As we saw with Warby Parker, we want to use that same technology to make sure that you get more monthly recurring donors. We know recurring donors are so valuable. So here we have a monthly upsell that happens as soon as someone clicks a one-time gift. And this is proven to triple your monthly donors just from this little upsell. Payment options, we want to make sure that people can give with Apple Pay, people can give with PayPal, people give with Google Pay. Just be as fast, as easy as possible to click donate. And we want to give people the option to cover the transaction costs. As you saw with the Uber Eats example, having a cost, having a transaction fee on something is expected, and giving the donor the opportunity to cover that makes it so that the platform is free to use for the organization, and 92% of donors are willing and happy to be able to cover that cost. And then finally, asking less information. This is especially prevalent in the US. And so we know that, in Canada, for instance, you're required to ask for mailing address, so never break any laws. But especially in the US, asking less information is proven to up your conversion rate significantly. And so here's the results of being able to implement all of those things. You're going to have 50 to 100% more revenue. We've seen organizations as large as UNICEF USA double their amount of donation revenue just from implementing some of these strategies. And we've seen them triple their amount of monthly recurring donors. And finally, your donors have a higher satisfaction and trust in your platform in donating it, because they feel it is modern, and it's not this archaic technology that they're putting their valuable payment information into. So next step is we need to get all of that information that the donor just put in, that donation that they put into the platform, and sync it to wherever you're holding all of that information, your CRM, your one source of truth. And the way to do that best is with a native integration. So whatever your online donation platform is, if they have a native integration with your CRM, it works extremely well and is very efficient for your organization to save time. The way a native integration works is as soon as that donation comes in real time, it syncs right over into your CRM. And the way native integrations work, should work, is that you can set up mapping rules, because we recognize that no CRM user uses their CRM the same. Everybody has different terms, has different fields, has different objects that they use. So if you have some way to be able to map the items that are in your donation platform to the items that are in your CRM, and so that it always goes over in real time, that's how it can work very easily. If you happen, Fundraise Up actually happens to integrate with all of these down here that I've listed. If there happens to be a CRM that your donation platform or Fundraise Up does not, then if you have a great way of being able to export all of that data in a really easy custom way, Fundraise Up has that as well, so that you can put that into that CRM until the donation platform has a native integration. So now you have gotten this online donation, you've increased your conversion rate so you get as many online donations as possible. You've easily synced it into your CRM. What do you do with the data now? I'm going to pass it over to my good friend, Linda.
Thanks, Will. So now that we've talked a little bit about that initial step of, hey, you've gotten that donation in, you've been able to take that, put that into your CRM, what is the next step here? And we talk about wealth screening after those donations. So what usually happens in a cycle of fundraising is we see a lot of those donors actually get lost. And essentially what happens is you go out, you find those new donors, right? You've gotten these online donation forms, you've been able to increase that amount, you've been able to decrease that friction, all of those pieces, which is really, really great. And then you put them into your CRM. And then what do you do after that step? Usually after that step, you send out a blanket thank you email. You say, thanks for donating. Maybe for those larger donations, you might spend a little bit more time to give that personalized message of, thank you, Will, for that donation, for believing in our mission, all those pieces. But ultimately what happens is we see nonprofits focus on those known donors, those limited constituents who have given those larger amounts. But then those other donors, they feel a little bit forgotten or they forget themselves. And so they largely stop those donations, which means that for you have to go back to that step number one of finding those new donors, and that cycle happens all over once again. So really what's happening is there's a gap because you don't know where to spend your time. You're spending the same time with everyone. So some of you might have already heard about wealth screening. And for those who have, there's a couple problems with the existing data solutions that are out there right now. So before Windfall, before we started, there was actually no accurate net worth data available. And so that's what our founders set out to do. They wanted to create that net worth data. The majority of what is out there is actually using proxy. So they're not actually net worth, but that is the data point that they're trying to calculate. So you might have done this yourself where you say, hey, we're going to look at household income, or we're going to look at home value. And the problem with that is those proxies are often incorrect. They're self-reported, they're an aggregation, they're using the wrong person, the wrong household, whatever it might be. And so you get a lot of really inaccurate data there. And so for you as an organization, you have to figure out what is good data, what is bad data. You have to decipher that, and you need to double check everything. And so ultimately, you're just spending a lot of time and resources validating everything, which, makes that very, very inefficient. We found this really startling stat where legacy data vendors are actually about 50% accurate. So if you think about that, what you're dealing with is a coin flip. You get this data and it's a coin flip, whether it's right or wrong, which is a little bit crazy when you actually think about what you're purchasing and what you're making your strategic decisions based on. So what do I mean by less than 50% accurate? Here's an example of a Jane Doe. On the left here, we have what a legacy data vendor might show, and then we have reality on the right. So you can see here, some of this information is correct. Obviously, she's female. Her home value isn't too far off. That home type isn't too far off either. However, the legacy data vendor might say her net worth is $500,000 to $1 million, whereas her actual net worth is $8.2 million. And then also that occupation might be correct, but then that political party, that marital status, that age, those might also be incorrect pieces of information. And so if you got this information on the left, would you think that this is someone worth pursuing as a major gift donor? Probably not, because you see that that's that lower net worth and it doesn't seem like it's a great fit. But if the actual reality is on the right, you just missed out on someone who's a really, really high potential donor. So why does this happen? Firstly, legacy data vendors are built on survey and census data. So we call them data aggregators. So they just make that data look pretty. They just compile it. They just put it together for you. Oftentimes that data is self-reported, it's demographic. And so instead of having a specific household, it's actually that greater demographic data, which is just an average of what that person is. Also, that data is refreshed pretty infrequently. We've heard annually, sometimes maybe it's quarterly. But if you think about that, a lot can change in a year. Look at COVID, people's net worth changed. So if you get data that's only annual, think about what that means. And then finally, ultimately what that means is billions of dollars are being wasted on inaccurate data. You're reaching out to the wrong people with the wrong information, and then you're going to have to spend time trying to check those inaccurate data sources. So ultimately with Windfall, our own vision is we want to change the way that organizations understand and engage those affluent donors. Just a little bit here on what Windfall, who we are, for those that don't know. We are a data company focused on affluent households. So households with $1 million or more net worth, those households that can move the needle with large donations. Our own data is built and refreshed on a weekly basis. And we have, because of the way that we built our data, which you can see some of those sources on the right, you can see that those are deterministic sources. And so we can provide that precise net worth data with a high degree of accuracy. So just a little bit of information on what Windfall does. And in terms of thinking about going back to that wealth screening, right? What are some of those best practices? You had those donations come in. What do you do next? Well, when we talk to nonprofits, we really tell them to do 3 things. The first piece is identifying, hey, you have those donations that came in. How can you prioritize? How can you figure out who are the folks that I should reach out to? Well, the easiest way to do that is just sort them from high to low, figure out who those wealthy donors are, figure out who those wealthy prospects are, and speak to them. Next, you want to understand who your donors are. So you want to segment those donors into what we call hidden gems, right? Maybe someone gave a $5 donation, but their actual net worth is $10.5 million. That $5 donation could really be cultivated into a much, much larger gift. So how can you find those hidden gems to make sure that they, you're really getting the best relationship you can with them? And then finally, just engagement. Whether it's wealth or whether it's based on a ton of other wealth data that we at Windfall do provide as well, find the right engagement strategy that makes sense. And what I mean by that is here are just some of the triggers that we have, but you can start to see just from this information, what are ways that you can reach out, right? So let's say they own a boat. Let's say they own a plane. Let's say they own a small business. Maybe the way you want to reach out is based on their interests, right? If they own a boat or plane, maybe you want to talk about traveling. Maybe you want to talk about that sort of lifestyle that they might have. Or, if they're on part of a trust or a nonprofit board member. These are pieces of information that can help you to figure out what is the right way to reach out. When is the right time to reach out with them? So after you get those online donations, really the key takeaway here is make sure that you screen every single person to find those hidden gems. And ultimately what you're trying to do is turn that $100 donation into those major gift prospects. So right here, I have some best practices that we've seen nonprofits take advantage of to really use that wealth screening effectively. So kind of what I said before, you want to incorporate that wealth data with every single new donor that comes in. You want to find those individuals with $1 million as soon as they donate. Every single campaign that you run, make sure that you're getting this information, because you don't want to send them that blanket thank you email. You want to send them that phone call, right? You want to get them talking to you. You want to send them maybe direct mail. You want to make sure that you make them feel special and appreciated because, they gave and they showed interest. And so as part of that, as mentioned, we want to screen all those potential donors. You want to find those hidden gems. You want to find those high potential donors. And when you do find them, make sure you have an outreach strategy in place, whether it is that phone call or maybe it's that thank you email or that, hey, I'm going to come out and visit you, whatever it might be. You want to make sure you're prepared when you do find them. The third thing that we talk about is fighting data decay and improving that internal performance. So what does this mean? Essentially, you just want to make sure that your data is up to date. It's not stale, right? People's lives change quickly, which ultimately means their data changes quickly. So you want to capture those life events. They got married, they just moved. When you do reach out, you want to make sure that you are not talking to them like it's a year ago and making them feel like you don't care about them, right? You want to make sure that you have that information so that when you talk to them, they feel appreciated. And then finally, you want to identify opportunities for reducing, for that clean data and reducing those false positives. One of the cool things about Windfall is because of the way we've built our data, even if you use multiple tools, you can just use Windfall to validate that information, make sure that that's correct. We are a great tool for that first or last line of defense, as our matching technology means that you can reduce those false positives and you can make sure you have the right John Smith, right? It's not someone incorrect. It's not that you have the wrong information on him. So what you want to do then, of course, is to uncover which donors could be higher impact. And I talked about wealth screening and how you can use wealth screening itself as a base level just to get that going. And so again, with Windfall, we're able to take those donors you had, take those donations you have, and append our wealth data to it so that you can figure out who are these hidden gems, who are these people that we want to speak to. Doesn't matter if they're in a CRM, CSV, whatever it might be, we can append our wealth data to it. And then I'll talk a little bit more about some other products that we provide as well to help with that. But ultimately, just so you know, that wealth screening base level is enough to get that started. What we also provide is propensity scoring for organizations who are looking for that deeper data, deeper machine learning ability. This is a machine learning algorithm where we take our data expertise and build it towards your goals. So if you are looking for an individual who can give $25,000 over 5 years, we'll build a custom built data science model based on your own first party data, combine it with our third party data, and help you find those major gift givers. So just another kind of layer on top of wealth screening, which you can take advantage of to find those folks. And then just the last product that we have is also data link. So why this is important is if you have multiple databases, you might have seen this yourself, where each database has different information. So how can you deduplicate who's on that? How can you link those various data sources together? This just helps you to get a better idea of who's in your database. So again, that wealth screening tool is a fantastic step right after you've gotten those donations in to find those wealthy households. But if you want kind of that deeper information, there's other tools out there as well that can help you, and that Windfall provides. So again, let's go over in summary what we talked about today. So some best practices we recommend for optimizing that online giving experience with third-party data. That first step, as Will talked about, you want to improve the donation experience itself. You want to implement those smarter donation forms. You want to get that information as frictionless as possible. And by doing this, you can expect to increase revenue by 2 times and monthly donors by 3x. So that's a really, really powerful tool right off the bat to make sure that you're getting donors in as many as possible, and you're getting that higher donation in right away. Once you've done that, make sure to take those donors into your CRM. Make sure to have them into your system of record, whatever it might be, so that you can track them and keep track of everything that they're doing. Once you've done that, we'll screen after the donation. Screen all the constituents that you have, everyone that's donated on a regular cadence, so that you can capture those people that come in who might be higher net worth and might be able to give those larger gifts. And ultimately, what this will help you do is to find those major gift prospects. If someone gave that $100 online gift, how can you, in their high net worth, their $10 million or even more than that, how can you make that prospect become a $50,000 major gift? That's using these tools is a very, very powerful and effective way to get those those higher online donations and ultimately get those major gift donors as well. So I know we kind of ran through that fairly quickly, but we wanted to make sure to leave some time here for Q&A. And I saw a couple come in during this. So let's see what questions people have.
I can answer this one from Lynn. Currently, it is no Windfall and Fundraise Up don't inform each other at the moment. It's definitely something we're open to conversation about. But currently, the different AI driven amounts are really driven by kind of the same things that Google Analytics is collecting from someone when they come onto a website. IP geolocation, device type, things like that. And all of these things are actually extremely good predictors of how much someone would give. But obviously Windfall has data that is an even better predictor, and that it's something that that we're open to conversation about, but no, it's not currently.
And I'll answer this second question here from Jessica. She asked if Windfall knows if a contact or contact spouse has died. And it sounds like they missed a spouse dying, which was extremely awkward when they reached out. And yes, we've heard that a lot. And so the short answer is yes, we do provide a data trigger called recent death. And that's a couple things. One is our data is built at a household level. So if you have a contact and a spouse, all of our data is based on that household. On top of that, we have that information for that recent death, and that is definitely the case where we've heard organizations say it's very awkward. I reached out, they recently divorced, they recently had a death in the family, and I just didn't know about it. So that's a great data point to use. And again, with that weekly refresh, you'll get that information very, very quickly. And so you can avoid those awkward communications. The second question here is more details on the sources of Windfall's data. So yes, we have two main sources of data. We have public data sources as well as data partnerships. So on the public data sources part, I think I had in that slide, and we'll send this out afterwards, just some examples of some of the data sources we use: real estate filings, boat ownership, plane ownership, those pieces. A couple things to hit on the public data side. First is because of the way that we've built our data, we have built it from the ground up, and we can do special calculations on top of it. So for example, if someone owns a real estate, if they own a house in San Francisco, it's $1 million. That doesn't mean that they have $1 million in net worth. They might actually owe $800,000 on it. And so we actually net out those liabilities when we calculate that real estate valuation and bring that into our net worth. So, even though we're pulling from public sources, we not only do calculations on top of it, but we also ensure that the only sources we use are deterministic inputs, so one-to-one matches. And so that makes sure that that really helps with that accuracy piece of things as well. So that's on the public data source side. On the data partnership side, we work with many different data partners that can help us to calculate that net worth estimate. So as an example, we have a partner that creates valuations on SMBs. So dentists, law practices, sort of those types of small businesses. And then we are able to take that small business valuation and bring it into our net worth estimate. So those are our two main sources of data there.
You're getting all the questions, Linda.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm definitely happy to answer them. Thank you so much for all the interest and the questions. So Jessica asked, is Windfall a subscription or pay per data pull? This is a great question. So again, the way that we work is we provide unlimited screenings on your entire database. So when you have those online donations come in, you can screen every single one as soon as they come in, every single week, every single month, whatever cadence you want it for, and unlimited seats as well. So what that means is we do have a subscription. So it's a subscription, an annual subscription to our data. You can connect your CRM, you can connect Fundraise up, when you pull that data in, you bring that into your CRM, connect Windfall to your CRM, and we will be able to give you that consistent refresh so that you get that information whenever you have new donors come in, or even just an update to the donations you've had. So definitely a very great way to capture those folks that come in and make sure that you catch those potential major gift donors.
Linda, I think there was also another question in the chat about, they said, we currently have DonorSearch integrated with Boomerang. Would you see Windfall complementing DonorSearch or replacing it?
Yes, I see that, Jamie. Great question. So, you know what, we say we are not an either or, we can be an either and, because of the way that our data is built. Sure, absolutely, you can use it on its own. It's a great tool. Again, with that subscription service, you can make sure that you're screening those donors as they come in and catching those major gift donors. But at the same time, if you already have a tool such as DonorSearch, you can also use it as an and. You can use us to validate the information that you're getting, because of the way our data is built. Again, we try to limit, or we try to minimize false positives. That's really a big goal of ours. And so, if you do catch that you're getting a lot of those false positives, you can use Windfall to validate the information that you're getting and make sure that it is correct. And because we have unlimited, you might even be able to screen people that you wouldn't have access to otherwise on DonorSearch, or you don't want to necessarily pay for. So great question there. Not necessarily an either or, it can be an and as well.
Any more questions? These were all really great ones. We got one more. I think this might be for you as well, Linda.
So John asked if we can share screenshots or examples of how donor information is presented to donor reps. So John, and please correct me if I'm misunderstanding this. So what you're looking for is, what does this data look like for reps who are out there? Is that correct? And you can also respond in chat, no problem. Or how this looks like in a CRM. Just want to make sure that I'm answering this question correctly. Well, while we wait on that, so in case this is the question, so Windfall, we are integrated into many CRMs, and it is on our website what that looks like. So, some of those integrations, what they are. If you are interested, after this call, we'll also send out. Obviously, you have my contact here. You have Will's contact as well. Awesome, John. Thank you so much. So you have both of our contact information there. So definitely happy to share some of those screenshots of what our data looks like within, some integrations such as Salesforce, Neon, whatever kind of CRM you might be interested in. Definitely happy to share what that looks like. But ultimately, those triggers that I showed earlier in the presentation, you'll get all of that information, the net worth information, all of that data will be able to show up within your CRM, or if you have a CSV file, we can also just append those to your CSV file as well. So you'll be able to see all that information and be able to have access to that. So definitely happy to share those afterwards.
I think that might be it.
I think so.
Great. Love the questions. Oh, we got one more. This one's for me. Whoever's using Lynn Liskio's account, there is an automation for thanking donors once they make a donation on Fundraise Up. So as soon as someone makes a donation an email is automatically sent to them from the system. You've already customized that email from the dashboard of Fundraise Up as much as you want, and with your picture, your own text, everything. And in that email is their tax receipt already, and is a link to their very own donor portal as well, where they can hop in and manage their donation and cancel it and change it, and so you don't have to field all those phone calls.
Awesome. And I had one other question here. Jamie, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. I'm more than happy to share any pricing or any questions that you might have there. And same with anyone else here, of course.
Perfect. I'm glad I got to speak to the real one. Would the real Lynn Liskio please stand up? I think that's all of our time. We feel free to reach out to either Linda or I. It was so great talking to you guys, and we'll send out some more information after as well.
Yeah, thank you all so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.